Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, your channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Here we go. Here we are. It's coming. It's a big one. It's time for Barcelona PSG tomorrow night in Barcelona, in Montjuic, for glory. Yeah, the big game is upon us, you know. I've worn my special Lionel Messi jersey in honor of, the GOAT gracing our two clubs. A contentious one again, you know, a Barcelona PSG. It's always got a special flavor. It's becoming one of the classics of European football the past few years. There's a lot of history between the two clubs. There's a lot of rivalry. And obviously, you know, it's the Champions League. So it's a clash at the top of the hill. And so what I do today is like, to give you a sense of what to expect from this game and how we're going into it and so on, I want to talk about three different areas of battles on the pitch that I think will determine the fate of the game. And then at the end, I'll give you the latest info on the starting 11 and my sense of prediction and what we can expect, what kind of result we can explain for this game. So, jumping straight in, the first one, battle of the left wing of PSG, right wing of Barca, and you know, on one end, for us, it's Nuno Mendes, probably Fabian Ruiz, Barcola, and on the other, that's Lamine Yamal and Joao Kounde. And yeah, I think ultimately, this is really like high noon. This is the ground of battle. We know Lamine is the number one attacking threat that they have in Barcelona. A lot of the danger will go through him. Nuno Mendes will have a big game ahead of him. He'll have his handful with Yamin. And like on the other side as well, like, you know, if you look at our attack and if you look at what we're bringing, Barcola is going to be our number one offensive threat. And Nuno is a player who can do the job defensively, but also project offensively. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see, like, not only how the two teams handle the attack and defense, but also how they handle the transitions and how, you know, PSG projects into attack and try to find space behind the defenders or tries to combine between the defenders. And same thing for Barcelona, you know, like, honestly, like, Yamal is a generational talent. He can take on a defense like basically on his own. But Joao Kounde also likes to combine and to project and to play with Yamal. The two of them do that. And so, you know, it's a threat that we're going to have to deal with, but it's also an opportunity for us. Because all of a sudden, if you pick up a loose ball and Joao Kounde and Yamal are playing in offense, the both of them, then who's running back to catch Barcola? And can you even catch Barcola if you're not with him from the start? You know, we remember the last time we played Barcelona in Montjuic, there was a 4-1 game in quarterfinal 2 years ago, where Barcola essentially got Araujo sent off just by doing this, by being able to take runs at the back of the defense, being faster than the defenders. And honestly, like, I've watched a few things of Barcelona this season. I think for them, that's definitely a flaw that they have as well, that there are opportunities to jump at their back. You know, last year it was a little bit of the caricature of Barca playing the offside trap. I think this season they don't really do it as much, but they do tend to play very high on the pitch. And so there are opportunities to combine, there's opportunities to take them on the transition. And a player like Barcola, yeah, who's got the legs, who's got the juice for it, he could really, like, you know, he could be a difference maker for us. And same thing on the other side, a player like Lamine Yamal, if we start committing player to offense too much and we're not careful, and you know, I'm thinking of the Chelsea game in the Club World Cup, where we leave space at the back of Nuno Mendes with a player like Lamine Yamal. Yeah, it's not gonna take 10 of them for him to be able to do, even better than what Cole Palmer did to us back then. So there is really like a sense of this is the area of pressure. Both teams are gonna need to be super careful in terms of how they defend, but they also need to commit and build some stuff in offense in order to be able to win the game. And so battle of the left wing, battle of the right wing, if you're a Barca fan, for me, that's the big battleground, one of the big battleground at least, and definitely one of the areas where the game might be won or lost. Second one, and I think this one a lot of people are talking about, battle of midfield. We're talking about the two best midfield in the world right now, simple as. Pedri and De Jong on the Barca side, Vitinha, Ruiz, and Joao Neves on the other. There is a question mark in terms of whether all three midfielders are going to be available. The latest information says yes. I think the one which is most doubtful is Joao Neves. What I'm hearing is that he's probably got about 60 minutes to play at least. And if he doesn't, we have Warren Zaire who can come on, who say what you want about Warren and about how he's been doing. He's got experience playing this sort of game. He's been in the team for a while. He's played European clash, and we know he can rise to the level, especially with more experienced players around him. So we'll see, but I do think it's going to be a really interesting one in terms of being able to control possession, which both teams like to have, which both teams usually have, and with both teams, then the midfields transform into this sort of operational headquarters to control the pace of the game, to control where do we go, how do we move from one side to the next, do we play long, do we play short, how do we combine, and so on and so forth. And so, if a midfield takes over and manages to gain the upper foot over the other, then that's gonna be danger on the other team. And so it is critical. And at the same time, I think for Barcelona, typically it's funny because they used to play like us with a player playing lower, like next to the defense as a number 6. Now they play with Dani Olmo, who's more of a number 10. And who likes to play in this space between the midfield and the defense, which is going to be the space of Vitinha. So I wonder, if on the Barcelona side, Olmo might struggle to find space, assuming Vitinha stays along with him. And on the other side, if we play a false 9, and I don't want to tease into the starting 11, but assuming Mayulu gets the nod ahead of Ramos, Mayulu loves to drop in the space between central defense and midfield. And like I said when I was talking about the left wing, there's spaces and opportunities at the back of the Barcelona defense. So if you get a player like Mayulu to drop into the space a bit further down the pitch, then you open even more space at the back of the defense for Barcola to run into from the wing. Or you create danger and things to manage for the Barcelona midfield, where all of a sudden the Pedri or De Jong, they're gonna need to be very mindful of what's going on at their back. They might need to drop a little bit further down and not be able to contribute as much offensively. And so all of a sudden, the game and the way they play the game starts looking very different. And yeah, I think that's for us an opportunity to create some mayhem and create some things that they're not gonna like dealing with. I've watched the game, the Barcelona game against Real Sociedad, and honestly, as strong as their midfield is, and we are talking about with us, maybe with Liverpool, one of the top 2-3 midfields in the world, there's opportunities to play around them. There's opportunities to have movement. There's opportunities to combine. There's opportunities for players to switch positions and just create a lot of different things. And so I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I kind of wish that our midfield was at full strength and that we didn't have players coming back from injury as well. But I think it's really, at the very least, it's going to give us a very good sense of where we stand against another elite midfield in a Champions League game. which is really going to be interesting in terms of how we need to progress and maybe start evolving our game as well in the long term. So yeah, battle in midfield. I think this one everyone is looking forward to it and really like seeing it in the horizon. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one. And I think it also ties with like the third battle that I have in terms of being able to gain possession, which is the battle of the subs. Because I think like candidly, like both teams, I think like if they're at full strength offensively, and if like Barcelona has Rafinha and Fermin, if PSG has Kvara, Doué, and Dembele, they can win games just on the basis of transitions, especially for us, like with what I've said about space at the back of the Barcelona defense. If we had our full strength line of attack, my God, it could be a party for us. Honestly, like it could be a party for us. And you look at what Inter did to them last year. Yeah, teams have opportunities. Real Sociedad, they scored a goal against them, and it's Real Sociedad, and they had opportunities. So you know, it's not a team that's completely foolproof defensively. And I think for us as well, like the importance of a player like Rafinha, who like had a huge impact in their game last season and who's going to be missing. The impact of a Fermin, who's also like, you know, a regular starter for them. Lamine coming back from injury, I think, you know, he's going to be starting the game for sure, but he might not be able to play for the full 90 minutes. So then on both lines of attacks, we're gonna have to see like who comes next in the pecking order. Barcola for us is gonna have to lead this line of attack. Mayulu, who I think will probably get the nod ahead of Ramos, will get a chance to really show what he can do in a top level game. Even Ramos, like whether he starts or whether he comes on the pitch later, it's another opportunity for him to show what he can do in a top level game, probably with a bit more space as well than in some Ligue 1 games, interestingly. And then on the right, probably Kang In Lee, as like the starting left back of Barcelona, Balde, is probably not going to be playing for this game, at least not going to be starting. He's just fresh off of injury as well. So that, like, even if Kang In Lee is not the best player in the world, he used to play in Spain before, so he knows Barca and the way they play and this kind of environment. He's been playing in the Champions League for us for 2-3 years now, and he's playing against a direct opponent who's not the usual starter in Barcelona. So it's not like, you know, we're not coming in like 12 steps below Barcelona, even with the amounts of injuries that we have. But it is a chance for those players to really show and prove what they can do in a top-level game. And thinking of the season as this extended block of football that's going to take us from now all the way to May and June of next year, you know, it's really like a good chance to see what we've got, to see what works and what doesn't, to see what we need to improve, but also like to start mapping out like how do we do things in certain ways and in certain situations in the second half of the situation. I'll give you an example. Last season, like we take a loss in Arsenal in the group stage and generally get, you know, pretty thoroughly dominated in this game. But at the same time, the experience gains there, you know, it's something that we carry with us when we walk into Anfield on the return and qualify there, when we go back to the Emirates and take the win there. And so it's not only about the win or the loss tomorrow, but it's also about like, how does this helps us improve and how does this help us on the path towards success at the end of the season. And ultimately, like for me, that's kind of the key takeaway of it, is that like, that's why I've said for glory, because it's not a life and death game. It's a group phase game. We're not going to be out of Europe tomorrow night. We're not going to be champions of Europe if we win. God knows last year we've lost quite a few of our group phase games. So the opportunity is really in the glory and in the learnings. And I think that's two things where hopefully we achieve what we want. And even beyond the subs, you know, like for other players like Chevalier, who he's played in the Champions League with Lille, but obviously playing it with PSG in this sort of context, a completely different ball game. This is an experience building game for him. If we look at player like Zabarni, who played like the first 10 minutes of his life in the Champions League against Atalanta, all of a sudden probably going to be a starter here, and he's going to have to play against Lewandowski and all of the Barcelona like epic line of attack. It's a chance to really like evaluate where they are, whether they can like be trusted in games like this, where they need to progress, and also like, you know, how do they combine with their partners? Do they play in the right way? Does having them and their profile on the pitch create areas of opportunities and area of threats for us that we need to manage? And so from that perspective, I think it's going to be super interesting to see. All right, I'll just jump into the starting 11. I'll start with Barcelona, and then we'll go into PSG. Barcelona, like I said, they've got a few players missing. So starting with their keeper, Fran Garcia is injured, so it's going to be Chesney who's going to be playing. Then in defense, Kounde, Arrojo or Christensen, not entirely sure who's going to be playing alongside Kubarsi. They've got their substitute left back in Martin, who's going to be playing for Balde. Balde might come off the pitch, but off the bench, but it's not sure. In midfield, Pedri De Jong. Both of them played 90 minutes against Real Sociedad this weekend. I was a bit surprised. They didn't get rested. They didn't get like subbed off and so on. So I was like, yeah, a little bit surprised. And then like line of attack, Yamal on the right, Olmo in number 10, Rashford on the left, and up front, question mark, Lewandowski or Torres. I honestly like, I'm not overly concerned about the number 9 in a way, but also I don't think it makes a huge difference. I think if it's Lewandowski, like he's a world-class striker with bags of experience and so on, but he's getting on with age. And honestly, like I'm less worried of the physical challenge, considering like we might be playing Pacho and Zabarni against it. And if it's Torres, yeah, it's more challenging because he's more likely to roam around and be a bit more sly and a little bit more contributing to the game. But at the same time, he doesn't have the same finishing level, and so like, yeah, like. It's you know, it's not really like a challenge that we wouldn't be able to see through. And they don't have a lot of substitutes in attack as well. So like, you know, at the 60th minute, yeah, who comes on? I think it's gonna be there's gonna be a few question marks. And then for PSG, the one we like, Chevalier in goal, given, Hakimi on the right, Mendes on the left, Zabarni Pacho in the middle. I was listening to a podcast who said something that kind of stayed with me. They were saying like, oh, maybe it will actually be Beraldo and Zabarni, or even like Beraldo and Pacho, kind of like they used to do last season, with Beraldo being the sub for Marquinhos, because we might need like more ball-playing defender to help like beat the press, because the two of them have played together in the past when Pacho and Zabarni haven't played together. And you know, like this season, Beraldo, like, say what you want, but he's had pretty decent games. And, you know, putting a left-footed central defender on the right against Rashford, who's more likely to drift inside and go back on his right foot, it's also like something that tactically could make some sense. I think it's a long shot. Personally, I think it's going to be Zabarni Pacho, but, you know, keep an eye out, and if Beraldo ends up on the pitch, we can say I'm listening to the right podcast, at least. In midfield, we got good news about Vitinha, good news about Ruiz, so it looks like both of them are going to be holding their place. Third spot, more of a question mark. Neves did the full training on Monday, so technically he's part of the squad, but he hasn't played since the Atalanta game. So could he start or not? I think he's probably got like 45 to 60 minutes of football in him. So if he starts, he starts. If he doesn't, Zaire Emery will start, and like whoever doesn't start will sub off and sub in at the 60th minute. And then in attack, I think is where like we really like don't have that many options. I just saw something that apparently Georgian media is saying that Gvara is not going to be included in the squad for this game and is definitely off. So then that leaves Barcola on the left, Mayulu as a false nine, where he did very well. He did very well against Atalanta. He did very well getting on the pitch in Marseille, and he did quite well as well against Auxerre, giving an assist and then coming off the pitch early so he'd be ready for this. And I think probably Kang In Lee on the right. And then we've got Ramos and Mbaye who are on the bench and can sub in, and hopefully Ramos can do his super sub thing. And I think that's how we get into this game. Cool. And then finally predictions. So first off, like I put in a small survey on my YouTube and Twitter pages, and I think in general, like the majority of you guys are saying, you're feeling pretty confident, I guess, going into this game. It's going to be a tough one, but you think we can get away with a win. And then like close second would be like, just getting out with a draw. I'm probably like, personally, I'd say like I'm about on the same page as that. I think like small win or draw. But then like if I try to look at it very objectively and I try to be like, not a PSG fan, but a sports commentator for a bit, then I think like, Barca probably has the advantage and should be able to get away with the win. But I think ultimately like it's going to be a close game. Even with all of the players missing, there's still a lot of talent on the pitch. And, in the end, it's going to be very interesting because it's a game where for PSG, we can go into it with absolutely no pressure in a way, which is really weird. It's a group phase game for us. Like it's our hardest group phase game out of the 8. So it's definitely not the one where we're banking on scoring points. We do have players missing as well, so we know there's gaps in our team. And at the same time, we can go into it with relatively no pressure, see how the game goes. Maybe we get away with a draw. Maybe Luis Enrique comes off with a little bit of magic and sees like a flow within Hansi Flick's Barca that people haven't seen before. So, I think anything can happen. I think the two teams are really, really close. I do think like Barcelona having Lamine back makes the difference here. And Kang In Lee, like, he could like just make the difference on this one, even on 60 minutes, and even coming back from injury. But yeah, I think like coming at it as a fan, I'm not expecting a win. I'm not expecting much of anything, honestly. I don't really like, I'm going into it like really relaxed and really happy to see how it goes, because yeah, like I said, like ultimately we're not going to get kicked out of Europe and we're not going to win a competition tomorrow. It's going to be a great game of football because there's a lot of talent on the pitch and on the benches, and so it's going to be a good one. We'll see what goes. We'll cheer for our team. We'll expect the best, but at the same time, like, yeah, whatever happens really. If I have to like, really like gun to my head, give a prediction, I'd say probably like either 1-1 or 2-1 for Barca is really where I see it. I think we still managed to score a goal because I do think there's opportunities running at their defense. I do see areas of weaknesses for them, even with only our subs available. But yeah, at the same time, like, I do think like they pile on the pressure and they're at home and they've got great players and yeah, like things could happen. So we'll see. But yeah, this is where I stand. This is what I had for you guys for Glory. Great game ahead. Tomorrow night in Montjuic in Barcelona, on top of the hills. Get ready for this. And as always, like please drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it and you watched it so far. Let me know in the comment what you think of the game and what are your expectations for it. And please, as always, like do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified, do all of those things. And don't forget, ici c'est Paris!